Welcome back, guys. Day 27. Today, I'm talking to a master of body reshaping, an expert, Cody McBroom, a.k.a. Boom Boom. Founder of Tailored Nutrition, this dude is an expert at burning fat and building muscle. You know how it can be so confusing for us and overwhelming to really understand what's actually important when it comes to getting lean and getting ripped and shredded because there's just so much contradicting information. Well, this is the guy that really takes all of the science driven data and simplifies it into what the everyday woman needs to, know to get better results. He puts it into simple terms and just teaches you what you need to know. He's a total geek when it comes to all the diet research and is just so passionate about sharing his knowledge and experience through his continuous supply of easy to apply content. When he's not nerding out on how many reps and sets it is best to build muscle and burn fat at the same time, or what the latest science says on fasting, you'd find him working out with his brother, spending time with his daughter, or teaching nutrition coaches on how to deliver better results to their clients. Whether you guys are wondering why you don't look better than you do for all the effort that you put in the gym, or if you're struggling with burnout or wondering how to build more muscle, you'll find something in this interview that you can apply right away. We really talk about a range of topics, but some of my favorite talking points were his new definition of fit, like what it means for him to be fit and how it's gone from having a six pack to being able to run, crawl, and have a sex drive. Why intermittent fasting no longer works for him. Okay. His experience with burnout, loss of motivation, and depressive thoughts, and what he did to overcome that. His current bodybuilding diet and training plan. The most common problem he sees with women trying to get lean, keys to building muscle, and then the most important keys to recovery that you are most likely not doing. So be sure to check this video out with Boom Boom, and then be sure to follow him on Instagram by clicking on the link below. Hope you guys enjoy the show. All right, guys, thanks so much for being back here. Today we've got on here Cody McBroom. Cody, thank you so much for being on here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm honored that you selected me amongst this crazy list of people. So thank you.
Oh, for sure. You were one of my top picks, dude. It seems like, I love the content that you put out there. You really just seem like you have a lot of experience. You're an expert in this field. And you just kind of you really say it how it is, like what's worked for you. And I love your approach. And so I'm just really excited for other people to hear how you've done it, how you've been so successful, and how your clients are getting good results. Because I have a few friends that are clients of yours, and
Oh, very cool.
yeah, they're killing it. So
Nice. That's really cool to hear, especially on a live podcast. It's a
yeah,
good
dude,
testimonial.
spread the love, man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I'm gonna, like I said before, I'm an open book. So I mean, any rabbit hole we want to go down, I love taking just trips and rants and on different topics. But I humbly saying this, I have a lot of experience. I literally joke around like there's nothing else I've done. Like literally, I had two jobs before this, but I was 18 years old. They were really short, and I was doing it while going to school for this. So I've literally been coaching in some extent since I was 18. So it's literally all I know. It's everything I've just like every day learning about, every day trying to learn more on, every day obsessing about the gym and obsessing about nutrition in a healthy way, and just growing. So yeah, I would love to share as much information as I can.
Awesome. So like, just kind of give us a quick rundown then, like who you are, what you do, and what kind of people you work with.
Yeah, so as I think they know now, my name is Cody McBroom. I own Tailored Coaching Method, which is a online coaching company where we do focus on training, but it's primarily nutrition, and we work with people all around the world. Like it's kind of funny because we don't have a niche. You know, a lot of people in business teach about finding a niche and like grabbing onto your one specific niche. We work with men and women, young and old, athletes, gen pop, bodybuilders, CrossFitters, like it's all over the spectrum. And we have a big team. So there's 7 coaches, 1 chief science officer, 1 media guy, and then 1 administration and assistant for me. So we have a big team, and we kind of have a diverse group of people who can work with so many different personality types with so many different goals and have so many different focuses, which makes it really, really powerful because we're all so passionate in the same level. I also do a ton of content. Content has always been my passion. A lot of people know me for content just because I'm kind of everywhere. I mean, videos, audio, Instagram, blogging, newsletters, ebooks, seminars, speaking publicly, speaking on a webinar, presentations, like any way that I can teach people, I do. So like I'm constantly creating content, which is one of my main roles now is kind of leading the team and educating my coaches and being kind of like a second eye on their clients and then creating a lot of content for the company, which is my dream come true. It's what I mean, when I was, again, 18 years old, I started my blog, and that's what turned into Boom Boom Performance, which was the company's name until I changed it to Tailored Coaching Method. So it's crazy to see that, like, back then I was just like, I just want to write blogs and lift weights. That's literally all I cared about. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make money. This is what I want to do. And eventually it just kept snowballing because I just kept seeking education information, and it grew into what it is today. So now I still coach people. I mentor some people, some other people who own businesses, and kind of, I don't like the word life coaching, but it's not business coaching because we go much deeper than just business. But I do that with a handful of guys. I work with a decent amount of clients, not as many as I used to. I keep my roster a little bit smaller than I used to. And then I have a full team. So my main role is just like leading the team and creating content. But that's kind of me in a nutshell.
That sounds like exactly what you set out to do then. Sounds awesome.
100%. It's actually weird, to be honest with you, because I remember interviewing for an internship when I was 19, and I got the internship. I ended up working there and being a head coach for like 6 years. But in the interview, he was like, well, like, what are your aspirations? What do you want to do? And I was like, oh, like, I'm going to make money off my blog. He's like, how are you going to do that? And I was like, I don't know. I just see guys like Nate Green and Jay Ferrugia and these people, they're writing and they got to be making money somehow. So I'm just going to do that. And he was like, all right, well, you know what? Like, train people in person every day for 5 years, get some experience. And then I think you could go do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, trained every day for 6 years, just
Mm-hmm.
gaining experience. And then I was like, okay, now I can coach people online. Now I can start building this empire. Once I found out that me and my wife were having a daughter, that's when I was like, I got to pick one. So I quit the gym, gave up all of my clients, gave up my whole entire paycheck, went all in on the online coaching and just built my business. But it literally is exactly what I set out to do when I was 18 years old, which is so crazy to think. But it just goes to show, like, if you have something you're passionate about and you can just put your head down and just go,
Yeah.
like, there's really no reason why you can't get there.
Yeah.
It's just that people don't want to hear, like, in a decade, I'll have this. But, I turn 28 next week. So it's literally been a decade.
You're
But it's
young.
like, I'm young, but I started when I was 18. So it's a whole decade of doing this. But it's crazy because at the time, if you would have told me, like, well, just keep writing blogs for a decade, like, you'll get there, I would have
Yeah.
been like, get the fuck out of here. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I did, because I focused on today. What
Yep.
am I doing better today? And it just snowballs.
Yep. That's super cool. I think that's something that like you did that with your business and your blogs and stuff like that. Like you brought your love and passion to that. Just like, I feel like in order to be successful and be lean for life, you have to have that same sense of love and passion for fitness, right? It can't feel like something I have to do. It's like got to be something that it doesn't feel like work, right? It's something that I want to do, and it just kind of makes the whole process so much easier.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think there's a quote, and I'd butcher it if I tried to say it exactly, but it's along the lines of, turn your passion into your job. Don't try to turn your job into a passion, because it's very hard to do that, to, like, okay, this is my day job, I'm going to find a way to love this. It's like, no,
Yeah,
like, find what you
exactly.
love and make that shit your job. And I think if you do that, you're never really going to have a job. Right. But
Or
it's
have
the
to
same
work
thing.
hard,
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
fit.
You I would say you still work hard, but it's much easier to consistently do that. Right. It's not pulling teeth.
It's different. It's a love for working hard.
100%. Yeah,
So
it gives you that grit.
it doesn't
Um, and I do think, like you said, I think it does apply to fitness too, because if you don't find a way to enjoy the process,
exactly.
it's going to revert right when you get to your result. So even if you do make it to the end of your fat loss journey or whatever it is, you're going to gain the weight back because you are so ready to get back to your old life, quote unquote,
Right.
that you're just going to
Right.
regain.
You're burnout, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think for me, like that's something I had to learn kind of like the hard way. I thought that I actually Like I thought I loved it, right? Oh, I love fitness and I was training so much, you know, for the CrossFit games and stuff like that. But really I was more trapped. Like I felt like it was something I had to do. It was a job. And so until I got away from that, I realized like, you know, just how different it is to truly love, like, and, you know, find out what you love about working out and just going full in on that.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree.
Hey, what's up, guys? We're just going to take a really quick break. Just so you know, every day I post some really awesome info on how women can get better results to getting lean in the kitchen and in the gym. So be sure to check me out on Instagram at natalie.newhart to take all of my unique secrets and start applying them today. All right, let's get back to the show. So, what were your first beliefs around what was required to look fit? So, kind of like back in the day when you first began.
You know, it's funny because I remember, so uh, I was always kind of like the chunky kid. And then when I was in high school, I kind of leaned out, but then I had 2 years in a row, tore my meniscus, then tore my ACL in soccer. So like those kind of set me back and I gained weight. So after high school, when I first got into fitness, I was overweight and I lost 50 pounds. And I remember looking, like I always just read muscle magazines, right? So I assumed if I lost 50 pounds, I would look like that guy on the cover of a muscle magazine. And
Yeah.
I didn't. I got to my result and I was like skinny fat. And I was like, what is going, this doesn't make sense. Oh, I have to lift weights. That makes sense. So I think like back then, you know, health to me was unrealistic. I was looking at drug taking bodybuilders, right? And granted, I have friends who take small doses of drugs to look a certain way, and they are amazing people. And they are completely open about their drug use because they don't care. And to me, that's fine. Like, I'm not going to do it. But if you want to do it and you're a nice person and you don't care, like, who cares? Right. But I think it's bad when you are selling supplements or training programs to people saying that you can achieve this with this when really it's the drugs that are doing it. So for me, like what fitness looked like at first was literally like Mr. Olympia. It was just like huge guys that were shredded to the gills
Right.
and were taking drugs. And to me, it was like I have to get super lean in order to get there. And not actually, it actually took me stepping on a bodybuilding stage to realize the opposite, which was years later. So I went through a whole transformation of I lost that weight, and then I ended up putting about like 20 to 25 pounds on over the course of like a year or two, just building muscle. And then I prepped for a physique show and got absolutely shredded. And it was such a paradigm shattering moment for me because I'm finally at the epitome of health, right? I'm stepping on stage and I felt like shit. I
Right.
had no sex drive, horrible sleep. I couldn't go out and have a drink. I couldn't eat anything except the stuff that was on my list. And this was a while ago. So this is like old school bodybuild prep.
Yeah.
And I was like, this doesn't make sense, you know? And then after the show, I didn't reverse diet and I just gained a ton of weight back and lost my abs and was like, this is crazy. So that was like, for me, the first time that I was like, what is health? Like, what is fitness? I mean, for me now, like being fit is being able to deadlift a considerably large amount of weight, but also being able to run a mile and not be gassed and be able to crawl in and out of my daughter's little princess tent that is like tiny as hell, but I need to be mobile for that. And it's also being able to sleep and have a sex drive and have energy throughout the day and not feel like I need 6 cups of coffee anymore. So I think over the years, it's changed quite a bit for me.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And how's your diet changed? I'm assuming you've probably experimented with a lot of different stuff.
I think I've tried everything except keto. That's the only thing
Oh,
that I just
I'm surprised you
couldn't.
haven't tried that yet. Okay.
You know, like I almost did just because, but to me, I love science. So to me, like as soon as I learned about it, I was like, let me dig into this, and then it's like, oh, it's just calorie deficit. Like I don't need it. If you feel better consuming keto, then all by all means go for it. But if you like to train hard like I do, it's not something I recommend. So I was like, there's just no reason for me trying it. But I've definitely gone through a lot of different things over the years. You know, like at first, like most newbies, it was actually all about training for me. So I literally, like, I remember being like, oh, I'm gonna start drinking Diet Mountain Dew instead of Mountain Dew, right? And lift weights. And I like was losing weight, and I was like, oh, perfect. I'm gonna
Mhm.
eat wheat bread instead of white bread. And it was like, even though that really doesn't
Perfect.
matter too much, but it worked. Like I
Mhm.
made all these little changes because it was like quote unquote healthy on the box, but really it was just creating a deficit for me
Mhm.
and I lost weight and it worked. So I never really paid attention to my diet until I tried intermittent fasting. And this is 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Like I don't even think I was 21 yet. It was when like the Warrior Diet came out, the Renegade book came out. before intermittent fasting, lean gains were like really popular. And it worked amazing for me. Like because, as a kid, like I'd wake up and go to school and I'd just have a cup of coffee, I'd be fine. And then I'd have like lunch, go to the gym and train people, and then lift, and then have like a feast at night. It just worked with my schedule.
Uh-huh.
Um, Again, nothing magical about it. Just creates a deficit or a surplus depending on how you do it. And if it fits your schedule, great. I wouldn't do it now because I have a higher stress lifestyle than I did when I was 20 years old.
Okay.
And I think intermittent fasting can produce more stress because it does increase cortisol as you fast longer. But point being is that worked really well with me. And then I did my bodybuilding show, and that was my first introduction to like a meal plan and like bro foods and eating 6 times a day and all that stuff. And then that worked really well for me. But afterwards I couldn't sustain it. And then I went to like a paleo diet and I felt way better, especially being in a position where I was deprived of things for so long. And then I started just focusing on health, and I wasn't worried about how many calories I was consuming, but I was staying relatively lean, but I felt really good. And I blamed it on all the paleo foods, quote unquote.
Mhm.
But as I kept getting educated, I kept realizing that everything was just creating a energy balance that matched my activity level. And so finally I started tracking macros and going that route. And I've been doing that for the last, I don't know how many years, because that's just what has always worked. Like, I eat kind of like a bro for the most part. Like, I like egg whites and oatmeal, and be like, there's nothing wrong with that. But
It's
I
simple.
also, it's simple, but I also really like wine. So if I want wine, I'm gonna have
Mm.
wine. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think
Yeah.
I'm definitely flexible, and I believe in flexible dieting, and that's what we use with a lot of our clients too. But I typically eat like a bro for the most part, just because it's easy to prep, it's easy to manage. I feel good, digestion's better, and I think for most people that actually works better because it's easier to know that what you are consuming is actually the macros you think it is. Where if you're eating things out of Chipotle or out of packaged box too much,
Mhm.
there's a margin of error with how much calories you're actually consuming. So it kind of
Yeah.
defeats the purpose of precision.
Yeah.
Um,
And then it's
but
hard to
yeah,
have like the wine too on top of that,
100%.
We all want that, that little
Yeah.
treat.
Yep. And that's kind of where I'm in this balance of like uh bro dieting, tracking macros, and being pretty flexible. And I typically lean on a higher carb approach. That's just what I feel better on. Um I typically eat the minimal amount of fat that I need to be hormonally healthy, which for most people I think is fine. Like if you're like there's like in my mind there's like this minimum threshold, like you need this much fat to be healthy and have good hormones, everything. But if you add 20 grams fat, you're not going to supercharge your testosterone. You're not going to you're
Mhm.
just adding more calories. So to me, because I train 6 days a week, I train hard, and I'm currently trying to get bigger and build muscle, I have the minimum amount of fat that I need to be healthy, and then I just maximize carbs. I
Mm.
eat quite a bit of carbs.
Okay. Do you change it up depending on like intensity of days or training days, rest days?
I do not right now, because my goal is to build muscle. So if my goal is to slow and steady gain weight, there's no reason for me to have low calorie days. I basically need high calorie days every day. In most research studying calorie cycling, so like carb cycling up and down,
Mhm.
doesn't really show any benefit if the weekly total caloric intake is still equated, right?
Mhm.
However, there are some people that I think adhere better to it. So for somebody like me who's eating a lot of carbs, like I don't, even a low day from this would be fine, right? But I think for people who, like, if they're on a diet, and it might be easier to have like a moderate day and like a really low day than all just like kind of low days. Does
Mhm.
that make sense? Because if you have to consume 135 grams of carbs right now during your deficit in order to lose weight, because that's just what you've been dropping to, and that's hard to adhere to, maybe you have like a few days where you're at like 175, and then you have some days where you're at like 100, which are
Mhm.
pretty low, but it's
Mhm.
okay because you have a 175 day.
Yeah, gives you a little break.
Um,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, and I think that's as long as it's within your weekly budget, I think it's fine. So for me right now, I don't. I think once we start cutting, which isn't anytime soon, I think I probably will use something like that just because it's nice to try to keep some carbs around training because I'm typically
Mhm.
hungrier. But during a gaining phase, I don't see much point in it.
Mhm. Okay. Did you ever run into a point where like you realize like an aha moment that like it doesn't make any sense to try any harder, to work any harder, to spend like 5 hours in the gym, because that was at least my that's I had to learn it the hard way.
Hmm.
So, and usually a lot of nutrition coaches or have learned it that way as well.
Yeah, I kind of went through this like cycle of like training would keep ramping up because I'm doing more and more and more. And then I would burn out and I would like have to take a week out of the gym, and then I just wouldn't be motivated to get back in the gym. And I almost, and this sounds crazy, but I even had like depressive thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually common for an athlete to overtrain. Their nervous system really does shut down, and you do get depressed. Like you literally are moody. And so I was so confused, like, why is this happening to me? I have a great life. Like, why do I feel so sad? And it was literally because I'm just like cyclically burning out. So I did go through that at a point in time. And I realized it when I want to say it was like right after I had my daughter was the last time I did it. I was good for a while because I was so busy that I couldn't have time to spend hours in the gym.
Okay.
So it kind of like saved me. Right. And then, I managed the business well. So when I had my daughter, I could actually like spend more time with her right when she was born. And we had a garage gym. So I was like, oh, perfect. I can train like I always trained. And I was in there for an hour and a half a day, going hard 6 days a week and not getting much sleep at all because my daughter was an infant not sleeping. So like I just completely burnt out. And that was like the last time I was like, all right, I need to adjust this for my current lifestyle because it's not the same as when I was 20. I could train differently when I was 20, and it's okay for me to admit that. And I think now it's for me like the biggest moments of realization with that is just like when I do that consistently and I just follow. Like I still to this day have a coach because I don't like doing my own shit. So when I follow what he tells me to do for like 4 months straight every day, and then I question it, like, okay, let's assess. Like that's when I can see the difference. Because, if I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna leave a couple in the tank. You don't want me to go to failure or go to hard. He's like, no, just chill. Like leave a couple in the tank. We're gonna hit some aggregate. Let's just be patient. Cool. I'm not gonna ask him about things in a week because nothing's gonna happen in a week. But in 4 months, I'm like, holy shit, I made a lot of progress. And it
Mm.
wasn't as hard as I thought it was gonna be. But it's because it's every single day, right? Every day I'm sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night. Every day I'm in the gym training at the right intensity and the right volume for my body. Every day I'm fueling my body properly. Like when you do those things over time, you realize you don't need to go super, super hard. Because there's a lot of people, and you probably
Uh,
experience this
yeah.
in your realm. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with a lot of CrossFitters for nutrition. You see them do that cyclical thing I was talking about, where like they burn out every so often and binge and have this crazy week, and then they're like moody, and then they're like, you know what, I'm back at it, I'm ready to go, and they get on it and they start going super hard, and then they burn out again. And it's like some people have permanent adrenal and hormonal issues from doing that so frequently. And I have clients like that where I'm like, I will only work with you if you stop training that way, if you start doing my programming. And
Yeah.
I know you think it's boring right now, but
Yeah.
this is the only way.
Yeah. It's really easy to get caught up in that because it's like, oh, I feel so good. Like I'm just gonna push a little bit harder. It's like our natural, like we're like, but we know it's like clockwork, and it's funny because it happens over and over. But yet we don't remember that the last time that I did this, I burn out and I binged, and then I didn't want to go in the gym. And so
Well,
how
you
do
get
you go ahead?
you get I mean, for one, you get an endorphin release when you train that hard, right? So
Yeah,
like
it feels
you
good
actually
in the moment.
you feel good. Like you
Yeah.
have like that moment of intensity, you're happy. And for some people, they attach themselves to the identity of an athlete. And the problem with that is your self-worth is tied to how hard you can train in front of other people.
Yeah.
Right. So going to a WOD with a bunch of people that are all competitive, which I love competition, it's great. But making that like that is what I'm here for. Like that's my self-worth, and that's not okay. Like it's not your self-worth. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I think that's where people get in trouble because if
Yeah.
they're not training that hard, they have no self-worth.
Yeah. Yeah. They feel like they it's guilty if they didn't push harder, especially when other people are pushing hard and the workouts for time, and but yet they feel like shit, and
Mm-hmm.
they just won't listen to themselves. So how do you get people um to listen to their body and be okay with not going hard? Is there anything that you do?
You own like usually people either have to have very very little experience at all, so they're going to listen to whatever you say because they don't know any better, or B, they have to burn out. You have to let them fail because it's the only way they'll realize like they don't feel good. And then once that happens, you actually have to like I've literally had clients write lists. I do it in both ways. So like I want you to write a list of all the reasons why this training isn't productive or conducive to your health.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to tell you why. I'm going to let you do it. Well, I'm more stressed. I'm sleeping like shit. I feel like tired and wired, so my cortisol's all jacked. Like they just go down the list. I'm like, okay, cool. And then once we reverse and they're like questioning it, because you know those people, you have to walk them, take them off the ledge constantly because they want to get back in, they want to start cutting, and you're trying to get their calories up. And I say, hey, I want you to make a list as to all the reasons that this reverse diet is good for you. I feel better. I'm more positive to my husband.
Yeah.
I'm training. I'm recovering from my training. I'm sleeping 7 hours a night. Like, then I'm like, okay, cool. This is why we're doing it. We have to get your body in a place where it's able to actually cut, because it's not yet, right?
Yeah.
And I've even taken it as far as like when clients are like so pressy to start a cut when I know they're not ready, I
Mhm.
will purposely put them in a big deficit and
Ah,
watch their weight not do anything. And I show
ah,
them like, you should be losing weight at these calories. You absolutely should, but you're not. So what does
yeah.
that tell you? You're not ready to diet. And then
Not only,
sometimes you need that.
not only that, they probably feel like shit right away too.
Exactly. Yeah. So sometimes you need that proof. And that can be a scary thing to do. Like I know when I was like just starting out, like I didn't want to offend or piss off or get any clients to leave. But now I've just been doing it for so long. I feel so much more confident in my coaching ability that I have no problem doing that. And I've done it plenty of times.
Hmm.
And I usually am able to take them out of that after like a week or two and just be like, see, like it's not going to work. Let's go back.
Hmm.
But in general, I think it's educating them on like in for some people, I get this question from coaches all the time. Well, I've done that. I've talked to them about why it's not good. And I'm like, okay, we'll talk to them about 100 more times, because it's not about the information. It's about the repetitiveness,
Hmm.
because they're always going to want to cut and they're always going to want to go harder. So accept that you're their coach and you just have to reiterate the message over and over and over and over again. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think it's just that. It's just reiterating it to them. And then every single time you see them say they feel good, they're sleeping better, they had flexibility diet or anything, grab onto that and applaud them for it. Like anytime I see anything like that, I'm like, hey, real quick, I just want to like applaud you for this. I want to make sure you see how great this is. This is
Yeah.
amazing. I love seeing this. And I
Hmm.
like really, really focus on it. So
Hmm.
it's positive reinforcement. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, that's good. Okay. And what do you feel like? Well, I know you don't really work with many people anymore, but I mean, you have a ton of experience. Out of like the women that you've worked with, what is the most common thing that you see them struggling with when it
Yeah.
comes to getting lean? And I'm talking about, women that are already working out and
Yeah.
they've already done the diets and, they know how to eat decent.
Yeah. And I still work with about 30 to 40 people. So I'm still working with
Oh,
quite a bit of people
okay.
compared to, I mean, I used to work with 70 to 100 people. So it was like nonstop. Yeah. So, to me, I'm not working, but I mean, I'm in my office right now. This is all I do. I'm literally at the warehouse every day, just doing this stuff. So, the biggest problem, it's hard to say. Like under eating is always the first thing that comes to my mind because it's just so common, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think like to be more specific than that, because I'm sure like any other coaches you have on here are probably gonna say the same thing, like it's under eating. But
I've
I
asked
would probably,
different questions.
what's that?
I've asked different questions.
Oh, okay, cool. So I definitely would say under eating, but I would say to get even more specific, I would say failing to use maintenance phases. I see a lot of people who it's almost like they're either dieting or they're like completely off the rails,
Mhm.
right? And they come to us and they're like, "Well, I've been dieting on and off for, the last 6 months." I'm like, "That's a long time to be in diet." Well, every Saturday I completely blow it, and then, every few weeks I get burnt out and I don't do this. So it's like this constantly like up and down of their body, right? Just like chronic diet, like super low deficit, and then like splurging. And for us, it's like, okay, how do we look at your calendar year and go, this is when you're dieting, this is when you're maintaining, this is when you're gaining, or we're cycling between the two, fat loss and maintenance, over and over again. And this is how we're going to structure that,
Yeah.
because maintenance isn't sexy. It's not. It's like, hey, I want you to spend some time not improving. Just stay there. Like that's not fun. However, it's probably the most critical phase of a diet, because if you don't do it, you can't cut successfully, and if you don't do it after the cut, you can't transition into a gaining phase without gaining a bunch of fat. So it's really, really important, and there's not that many people that do it, especially those not working with coaches.
Hmm. And how would you know they are ready to cut?
Usually just like, I mean, we do a pretty in-depth questionnaire and like kind of like diet history with them, so we can really almost like interview them and really understand how many diets have you done? How long are those diets? All those things. In general, I would say biofeedback, because I'm going to look at sleep, mood, cravings, performance, sex drive, hunger, recovery, mindset, motivation, all those things. And if more than one of those is like through the floor, that's a red flag. You know, you shouldn't be, you should have good stress, good sleep, positive moods, be motivated. You should have all those things before you even start a diet. And then on top of that, if I look at your history, if somebody comes to me and they've dieted within the last 3 months, we're probably not going to diet, right? If they've dieted within the last 6 months, I'll consider it. It just depends on what that diet looked like. And then beyond 6 months, then I feel pretty good. But like, you know, a lot of people should maintain for at least half as much of the time that they cut for after every cut. Now, eventually you want to maintain for good. You don't want to be like constantly trying to diet, but once you get to your goal, um, but a lot of people forget about that. Like, you know, like some people even say like you should have 1 to 1.5 times as much time spent at maintenance than fat loss. And I would agree with that for health. But if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's, you know, coming to me and they're like, I have a goal of losing 60 pounds this year, we're going to spend more time dieting than not. However, if we look at a 5-year scale, they're going to spend way more time maintaining down the line. So it
Mm-hmm.
kind of depends how you look on it. But I think in general, just the lack of use of maintenance phases is probably what I
Mm-hmm.
would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then just kind of like going back to your personal experience, what does your diet and gym routine look like today? I guess
Yeah.
you
So,
talk about diet, like you're tracking macros, bro diet, but I guess
mhm.
what's your gym routine set up like?
Yeah, so right now I'm following a upper lower push pull legs split. So typically Monday, Tuesday, upper lower. This is where heavy bench day, heavy squat day, big compound accessory lifts, even so like heavy RDL, glute ham raise, just like really like usually it's heavier loads, lower reps. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm following a push pull legs split. So it's a 5-day split in total. And these days are more like bodybuilding. So it's 8 to 15 rep range. Um, this is where I'm doing cable flies, lateral raises, curls, leg extensions, stuff like that. So it's a good combination of like functional strength training and like bodybuilding. On Wednesday, I usually do some kind of mixed modal conditioning. So whether I'm cycling between the rower, the assault bike, the assault runner, and the sled and going in like a circuit fashion, or I'm doing just the assault runner at certain tempos. And then Sunday is just like a long walk day. I try to do something every day because I don't like just sitting.
Mhm.
I like to be doing something, but also I find my recovery is better if I keep moving. So
Mhm.
Sunday's really chill. We live in Washington, so there's trails and trees everywhere. So I just go out and walk the trails for an hour on Sundays. But that's like the split. That's the general split. And right now, typically like my go-to program is more of like a modified conjugate method. So it's more of like pretty dynamic. There's some powerlifting in it. There's more conditioning in there, and there's less bodybuilding, but there's still definitely some bodybuilding in there. Um, However, like I said, like I'm an advanced lifter. I was like, all right, I need to like put some solid time into just trying to gain size before I'm too old to really put on a lot of muscle.
Mhm.
And so it was like, all right, let's bodybuild, you know. So I was following a push pull leg 6-day split for a while, and then I switched to a 5-day split just because of stress, and that's been good. I've been gaining weight, I've been making progress, but I'm excited to get back to some of the more functional stuff just because I like it. But I think for being productive in a gaining phase and trying to get big, I think I'm doing the best thing.
Mhm. And like, so you said you went down to a 5-day split. Like that's pretty smart for somebody to, to realize, like my, work is stressful right now, or, family stressful or whatever. So you just realize that like just not feeling good. I'm not like the motivation. You maybe not lifting as much. Is that when you notice like, hey, I need to drop it down a day?
Yeah, and it's funny. Like I think that it's hard for most people to do because I had to tell my coach that
Mm,
I
right.
couldn't.
Ooh,
It's almost like I
that's
can't
tough.
hang. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like your ego. But you know, like I was doing a 6-day bodybuilding split, a lot of volume, and it's you know, I we went 16 weeks, so 4 months of that split, changing some variations throughout the process. But after 4 months, I was like, dude, I can't handle this much volume anymore. I'm just like, I'm starting to burn out. Like, and it wasn't really that like weight stopped progressing yet because I was still making progress.
Okay.
Um, but I started like not wanting to train. And that's when like that's the biggest, and that's actually like the first red flag. So on my clients, like tracking sheets, I have mental motivation on a scale of 1 to 5. If I see the mental motivation to train start dropping,
Right.
that's the first sign that a deload or diet break is needed.
Yeah.
So I just told him, I was like, man, I don't even want to train. I literally don't even care to go to the gym. And that's not me. I own a gym with a bunch of cool stuff in it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't even want to be there. It doesn't make sense. So he said, like, what do you want to do, 4 or 5? And I said, let's just do 5, because I wanted to maximize volume still, but I want to be able to recover, you know?
It's a big deal for us when we finally like own that and say like, you know, oh, like I don't feel like training. That's a big deal for you to come out and say that. Like, so
Mhm.
if you're saying that, you know, that's a big sign you need to pull back, you know.
Yeah. Cause this is something I love. Like, I mean, there's
Exactly.
nothing I love more than training. So,
Exactly.
but yeah.
Okay. So, and do you, I'm assuming like some days are obviously harder, some days are a little bit easier, right?
Yeah, so that's like that. The Monday, Tuesday are those first like kind of max effort days where I'm not maxing out, but I mean I'm squatting in the 3 to 5 rep range. I'm benching in the 3 to 5, like RDLs in the 6 to 8 rep range. So it's a lot heavier loads.
Mhm.
Whereas like on Thursday's a push day, so I start with overhead press 8 reps, and then everything else is like 15 reps. So it's still intense because I'm getting a pump, I'm doing high reps, my heart rate's going, but from a systemic level, from a joint level, from a nervous system level, I'm not lifting nearly as heavy because I have
Mhm.
to do 15 reps with a lateral raise versus 3 reps with a bench press. You know what I mean? It's totally different. So
Mhm.
we definitely kind of coupled the central nervous system demanding workouts right at the beginning of the week, take a like a recovery conditioning day, and then it's like bodybuilding.
Mhm. Okay. Cool. And then, so people that just like want to like maintain their fitness or, you know, maybe lean out a little bit, you know, not putting on size, like how important do you say, or do you think it is for them to like track their, you know, follow a program, and, track their weights and all of that?
I think it's critical. I mean, if like if we look at let's say like a typical time period for a training block is like 4 weeks, right? It's like a month. And usually in classic strength training or bodybuilding, CrossFit kind of did something completely different, which has application for high level CrossFit athletes because the sport of CrossFit is essentially, I mean, to simplify, it's randomness. You have to be good at so many different things. It almost doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
But that's the sport. So you have to do different things every week because you have to be good with the element of surprise. It's part of the sport. Whereas if we're trying to change the way we look or if we're trying to change our strength levels, we actually have to repeat the same thing. It's a repeated bout effect, specificity. So if I want to get better at the barbell front squat and I do it every 6 weeks, I throw it in, I'm never going to get good at it because it's like, oh shit, I got to learn how to do this again. Right. So instead, like, so for me, I've been barbell back squatting every week for 20 weeks straight on Tuesdays. So it's like, every week I know exactly what I'm doing. So like typically like going back to the 4 week block, we look at that. Week 1 is kind of like a learning curve, right? It's like, okay, let me get used to like my stance, the bar path, like what's a okay load, leave a few in the tank, just feel good. Week 2, I feel comfortable with the movement, so I can add a little bit of load. Week 3, I know what like my capability might be, so I'm going to add load. Week 4, I maximize that. Week 5, it's a new lift. And now it's a learning curve again, so the weight's lower, it's a natural deload, and we repeat the process, and it eliminates boredom for people,
Yeah.
um, which is like the reason why I think a lot of people do like constant variations, because it just keeps it exciting. But
Yeah.
if we look at like the key element of building muscle, which applies to losing weight too, it's progressive overload. You cannot progressively overload a movement unless you repeat that movement week after week. So typically the way I like programming for anybody who has a goal outside of getting better at CrossFit, we're going to stay in like 3 to 4 week blocks. So like the compound lifts might stay for anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks. So your squat, your bench, your deadlift, we might stay with like, the 4 to 6 reps range for that long. And then we might move to a different rep range or change the variation of squat. But your accessory work is going to change every 3 weeks. So your lateral raise, your lunge, your step up, your pull up, those things can change more frequently because, I mean, you're not going to just keep adding weight to a chin up. You're not going to keep adding weight to a lateral raise. It just doesn't happen. So every 3 weeks, changing those up to avoid that boredom and to create a novelty stimulus is good. And it's enough where you can still progress for a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely, and I agree. Especially, um, people who don't have a strong base, you know,
Yeah.
CrossFit athletes who've already gone through that whole phase training. It's like for them, it's like it seems like they can almost do whatever and just maintain, but they don't,
Yeah.
somebody who's trying to build a physique, they need to create that
Yeah.
stimulus.
I think some of the best CrossFit athletes, if you look at their history, they were like Olympic lifters for a long time, or power lifters, or they did bodybuilding. But either way, they did one thing, got really good at the movements, got really good at lifting weights, and then you threw all this randomness at them. So
Yeah.
so it's not so random to them. It's just like, oh, I remember how to do that. Let me do it real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Versus somebody who's never been in the gym and it's like, oh, what's a clean? Okay, let me learn that. And then next week it's something different,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
constantly changing.
Yeah. And then I had this question. What was my question? Uh, Shoot, I just forgot it. Okay, no problem. So how do you keep working out? How do you keep it fun instead of a chore?
Like right now, like it's lifting with my brother-in-law. Like he's a big burly iron worker. He's just like a massive dude, and he wanted to lose weight, so I'm helping him out lose weight. But he's just strong as hell. So like for me, like the camaraderie and being like, fuck, I got to keep up with this guy. Um, and I think that, like, going back to CrossFit, I think that's the beauty of CrossFit. Like that's the good thing about it. There's so many, like there's just so much community and connection, and camaraderie and positive competition. So that's definitely a big thing for me. And then I also think like content creation actually fuels it, because for me, like I try to show people new movements and do new things, which means like, okay, today I have to do lateral raises on my program, but I'm going to change them up in some crazy way and show people like a new creative way to do lateral raises. And like that keeps me going, keeps me
Yeah.
excited. Um, but like, and this is go back to the point, I have my bread and butter movements where I won't change them because those are the ones that progressive overload is important with, right? Like I'm squatting, I'm
Yeah.
benching, I'm
Yeah.
doing my bent row. Like those are going to stay, but then I can tweak some other things. So I think content creation and then just having somebody with me to be a training partner with me is huge.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, I agree. I think uh, leading others is a huge. It works. It's like a win-win. Serving others makes it super fun. What do you feel like when you don't feel like working out, or what do you do? Sorry, when you don't feel like working out, goes through your head, or
It's very rare. It's very rare to happen. I would say, like I mean, if I'm not beat up, like I'll go like skateboard or something, just because I always grew up skateboarding. But usually, like I'm such a family man now. It's like a totally different thing these last few years. So for me, if I'm not lifting, I'm doing something with them. I'm like playing in the yard with my daughter. I'm taking her through the trails. We live in this really cool neighborhood where there's like 40 miles of trails through the woods, just everywhere. And there's like all this cool shit inside these trails, like rope swings and like lookout views. So I'm just taking her everywhere, doing stuff with her, or just enjoying time with my wife. But like I don't have. It's funny because way back when I had all these different hobbies and different things I would do, but now it's like I'm either working, training, or I'm just chilling with the family, and that's it. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
mm-hmm. And I mean, like you do a lot, and so how important is recovery time? Like, what are your go-tos for recovery? I'm assuming it is like the trails and going out with your daughter
Hmm.
and stuff like that. But how do you plan that in? Because that is so important, and I think a lot of people can get caught up in just go 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 with the flow of life, and so do you plan that out? Because I mean, that recovery time is like critical for your ability to build muscle and for your
Yeah.
your work and all that. So how do you implement that?
Yeah. So, like they've done a lot. There's a really good book called How to Recover from Training. Not a very clever title of a book, but it's by Dr. James Hoffman. It's really, really good. And it talks about all these different recovery modalities, right? Massage, supplementation, compression pants, and stuff like that, ice baths. And none of them really make a tremendous difference. What they find to be the biggest difference is actually psychological relief. So they find that the reason why a massage is actually so beneficial for recovery is not because you're rubbing knots out of your muscles. It's because you have no phone. It's dark. There's like waterfall music in the background and somebody's physically touching you,
Yeah.
because physical touch for over 7 seconds at a time releases endorphins of positivity. So like even like, and this is like a good thing for personal trainers listening, like a client walks in, grab their shoulder and just say, hey, like, how you doing? Like, I
Yeah.
just want to, you know what I mean? Hold them for 7 seconds. Like it's a way to reinforce that positivity. But yeah, I think for me, it's knowing that helps a lot because I plan in things that are going to let me do that. So before COVID hit, I was doing a massage every other week, no matter what. It was just like every other Friday, no matter what, I'm getting a massage. Every night, almost every night, I'm walking the trails with my daughter, or watching cartoons with her, or doing something where it's like no phone, just chill, relax. Sleep is huge. For a long time, I tried to ignore that because I was just like hustle, hustle, hustle. But when I actually started sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night, it was like such a game changer. I just started feeling so much better. And I tracked my sleep to see if I was actually sleeping. So improving my sleep was huge. And those are the biggest things. Honestly, it's really just, it's downtime. You know, I've done ice baths, I've done compression, I've done cryo, I've done all those things, but none of them really make a big difference. If you're programming smart, you shouldn't be training so hard that it's a problem to recover. And then you should be having some kind of downtime. And the only thing I would add in there is having structure around it because, you know, like I have my morning routine, and part of my morning routine is like a mobility yoga flow. So I'm stretching and doing mobility. That's part of like my planned and structured recovery. Every night I have something to do with my daughter. That's part of my recovery. Every other week getting massage. That's part of it. It's all structured in my calendar. So when you say like you're just going and going and going because life is so busy, it's part of that busyness,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because so it always gets done.
Yeah. But I think what you're hitting home with is like when you're in that mode, you are 100% present there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Turning off, bringing the same intensity that you bring to the gym, you're bringing that same intensity to chilling out and turning off
Yeah.
to get that recovery. And I think that's something that a lot of people tend to have a hard time with because we're surrounded with a phone and like we're constantly, getting bombarded. So
Yeah.
that's
I'll
really
admit
cool.
it's hard for me too. I'll admit
Oh yeah.
totally. It's extremely hard,
Like,
but it's something I'm
like,
constantly working on it.
yeah. That's the first. I haven't. It makes sense. It's totally makes sense. But it's the first time I've actually like really heard that. Oh, all this stuff doesn't really do anything unless you actually intentionally chill out.
Yeah.
Turn the brain off. So that's
So
cool.
they did a study that had two groups of athletes, and one group, I don't remember what they were doing at night. They were doing something that still stimulated the brain. And the other group had no phones, had to watch Netflix for like an hour or two at night every night. And the group that watched Netflix had better recovery and better performance.
Then
And
the
it
group
was
that did.
literally that didn't get like TV time, right?
Oh,
Didn't
uh-huh.
get Netflix time. And like there's more
Interesting.
specifics to the study. I'd have to pull up the study again, but I believe it's in that book. And I interviewed that guy. So you should listen to the podcast with Dr. James
Oh,
Hoffman. It's
cool.
called Dark Recovery with him. Really, really good. But yeah, they got better recovery. And it's like, oh, well, those guys got to chill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Chill for sure. Yeah. Cool. Awesome, dude. And so final question. What do you think is like, in your perspective, what's the simplest thing that, CrossFit women who work out a lot can do to see better results from the gym without having to spend more time in the gym or kind of obsessing with food? What's the simplest thing you would recommend?
I mean, there's two things that come to mind. You know, when you said obsess, it kind of made me not want to say this, but I do want to throw it out there. Like tracking macros, I think is helpful because there's a lot of women who are in that position because they're under eating. And if you don't track macros, you won't know that you're under eating. So sometimes it's helpful to track, not to go on a diet, but to become aware of how little you're eating
Mm-hmm.
because that's what's causing the issue, right? And then you can increase calories and you can see the correlation between your feeling better and the calories that are being increased. But again, without numbers, we don't know that's happening. But to make it even more simple, I would say adding in instead of subtracting out. And this is something I read in, when I did my precision nutrition cert like 5 or 6 years ago, a long time ago. But they talk about don't pull things out of your diet, add things into it, right? So instead of restricting, try adding more lean protein, try adding fish oil, try adding more vegetables, try adding more water. When you do those things, those bad habits are going to slowly fade away because you won't have room for them. But
Yeah.
if you restrict those bad things, you're going to want them. Anything you tell me I can't have, I want it, right?
Yeah.
That's just human nature. So I'd rather add things in for somebody than take them away.
Cool. Awesome, Cody. What a great talk, dude. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so a lot of my content is on Instagram at Cody.boomboom. tailoredcoachingmethod.com is where everything else is. We host the podcast there, which is the Boom Boom Performance Podcast. We host videos, blogs, free guides, like all kinds of stuff on there.
Boom Boom Podcast. Awesome. And what kind of, you said you had a free gift for the audience?
Yeah, so my ebook, The Tailored Nutrition Method, and it is, I want to say it's 86 pages long. So it's a big ebook, and it literally covers everything. It's called the All-Inclusive Guide to Mastering Your Diet. So it teaches you about cutting and maintaining and bulking and vitamins and minerals and macros and calories and carb cycling and nutrient timing. Like, I don't know if there's any stone unturned in there, and it's completely free.
Cool. Where can they find that?
So if you go to tailoredcoachingmethod.com/products, it will be right there on that list of products. It's completely free. You just got to click it and download it.
Awesome, Cody. Thanks so much for being on here. That was such a treat. And yeah, thank you all for watching the show. We'll see you guys next time.